Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something really different, a unique challenge, you could say. Our mission is to dive into parts of a document called P1GRLX Siski3T.pdf. And the thing is, it's written in this script that's, well, completely unfamiliar, esoteric, really. Now, when you first look at it, you're probably thinking, okay, is this just random symbols, gibberish? And honestly, that's a fair reaction. It looks impenetrable at first glance. But our goal here isn't just to read words. It's to see if we can still pull out some knowledge, some insight, even when it looks like this. It's about looking past the surface, trying to understand the architecture of the information itself.
That's spot on. When the actual meaning of the words is lost to us. I mean, when you can't rely on semantics, the structure becomes incredibly important. It's paramount. So this deep dive, looking at this unusual document, it really highlights how critical analytical thinking is for any complex document, actually, whatever the language.
Yeah.
It forces us to look at how knowledge itself is put together.
Okay, right. Let's try and unpack this then. We're starting with what seems to be the first major heading. It reads, Nudu, you, hiu, you, here, you. Just looking at those characters, it's visually quite striking, isn't it? It gives you this immediate sense of mystery.
Mm-hmm. Now, what's really profound there isn't just that there are headings. It's that this decision, this structure, it reflects a universal human thing, right? The need to categorize, to guide the reader. Even with a script we can't read, the author is clearly trying to break the information down, make it navigable. It hints at a logical purpose, maybe even, teaching something. It's the first basic clue we get about what the author was trying to do.
Okay, so moving into the second section, yu. I remember seeing something in there that just felt, well, instantly familiar, universal even. What did you make of that? How did that change how you looked at it?
Oh, that was fascinating. Yeah. Finding things we recognize, like a question mark or a sequence of numbers. It's like finding a constant in physics or something. It cuts through the unfamiliarity. A question mark. It's not just punctuation, is it? It implies asking something, maybe uncertainty, or perhaps it's highlighting a key point to think about. Suggests the author isn't just stating facts, but maybe exploring something, posing a question.
Right.
And numbers, like that 70 yards we saw, well, numbers almost always mean precision. Quantities, dates, references, something concrete. It sort of pushes the document towards being factual, maybe empirical or historical, rather than just, say, philosophical musings.
So if the question mark suggests inquiry, could we guess anything else about the author's goal there, beyond just asking a question?
Well, potentially, yeah. It could suggest an author who's wrestling with an idea, maybe presenting different sides of an issue or setting up a problem they're going to solve later in the text. It adds a layer of, intellectual engagement, you could say, even if we don't know the topic.
Interesting. Now, in what looks like the third main section, what immediately struck me was how clearly it split into two parts, two distinct subheadings, ue and then ue. That consistency started to feel, well, almost reassuring, actually.
Exactly. And that kind of consistent internal breakdown, the subcategorization, it's not just about making it look tidy. It's a really strong signal. It signals a hierarchical structure of knowledge, It tells us the author is methodically breaking down a bigger topic into its smaller parts, guiding the reader step by step into more detail. That's pretty typical of, like you said, academic work or maybe instructions, guides. It shows a deliberate effort to be clear and systematic.
Right. So after carefully mapping out those initial structures, those headings and subheadings, we were sort of wondering, would this document ever give us something really solid to grab onto, an anchor? And then we got into the next section, uyusi uvi ui, and something genuinely amazing jumped out. It really shifted our perspective. This section has three subheadings, uyui, sio, and ogyu oni. Okay, standard enough by now. But the real kicker was finding right there in the text the phrase cellular automata, like in English, and next to it, 23, which, seems very likely to mean 20th century. I remember just staring at that line, thinking, wait, am I actually seeing this? It felt jarring at first, then suddenly, incredibly clarifying.
Yes. That moment, that cognitive jolt, followed by the clarity, that's exactly why anchors like this are so potent. Finding specific, universally understood terms like cellular automata. It's like finding a little piece of a Rosetta Stone, isn't it? It gives you crucial context, instantly suggests the document's domain, maybe computer science, maybe complexity theory, mathematics, something in that realm. It's more than just a clue. It's a breakthrough. It lets us guess the subject matter with a bit more confidence. And putting that together with a possible date marker like 20th century, well, it starts to paint a picture of the document's conceptual world.
Absolutely. That cellular automata breakthrough felt huge. But what was also striking was how the document just kept its structure. It maintained that discipline. In the very next section, as Nornia, we saw the pattern continue. Two subheadings again, Assis and Ezerai.
And that continuity is important too, if you think about the big picture. The fact that the author uses these distinct subheadings consistently across different major parts of the document, it just reinforces how highly structured it all is. It really suggests a systematic way of presenting the information, like a meticulously planned paper, even though we can't read the actual words. It speaks to a careful writing process.
Okay, shifting slightly. The next section, EDUSC, really caught our eye because of the numbered subheadings. We see 1, 2, and 3. And they have these titles, Sanyus Haita, Sa Nus Ho, and Yanyus Us As. And then, right there in subheading 1, another potential date clue, 1903 Lu, which, well, it seems very possible that means 19th century.
Yeah, that numerical ordering, the 1, 2, 3, it almost always signals a sequence, doesn't it? Or maybe a progression of ideas, or just listing distinct points. It's a fundamental way humans organize information, guides the reader through steps, or maybe a timeline. And connecting that possible 19th century reference to the 20th century, one we saw earlier, that strongly suggests a historical scope, right? Maybe the document is tracing how an idea developed over time, leading up to something more current, perhaps.
Makes sense. Okay, next up, Ecosius, Ex-E. This one has two subheadings, Thrieswin and Ex-Vigne. It felt like we were hearing an echo, seeing similar character patterns again.
Now, one could argue, couldn't they, that just seeing repeated symbols might just be a quirk of the script itself, not necessarily about the theme. What makes you feel confident that these repetitions really point to thematic groups?
That's a fair challenge, but I think what's compelling is where these repetitions occur. We're seeing similar sequences like Hun and A specifically appearing as subheadings within a larger section. Even if we don't know the meaning, the structured repetition suggests they're related, like variations on a theme. It implies the author is looking at different aspects of one core idea. A bit like having chapters called Intro to X and then Advanced X. It's the pattern within the structure that's the clue.
Exactly. It points towards a deliberate partitioning of the topic, breaking it down into related subtopics.
Now this next one stands out. Azer Us. It's not just a heading. Inside this section, we find a really precise number, 1.893 uch. And then, remarkably, a list, 5 distinct terms strung together. It feels like suddenly we're seeing raw data.
Yes. The appearance of really specific numbers and enumerated lists like that, it points straight towards data, or quantities, or specific categories being listed. These are basic building blocks of informational texts, whatever the language or script. They function as data points, even if we don't know the context. So what that tells us is this section is likely dealing with concrete facts, or perhaps categorizing things. It suggests a very detailed, maybe even quantitative part of the argument. Could be anything from, say, experimental results to maybe even a bibliography. Who knows?
Interesting. Okay, moving towards the end now, we hit Isasayu, and this section has 3 subheadings, Isayo, Ihaize, and Eisaize. That sequence A really stands out here, appearing in all 3.
Absolutely. And seeing that clear repetition, that pattern like A, in multiple subheadings, and not just here, but possibly echoed from the previous section heading, it strongly suggests a recurring theme or concept, something that's being looked at from different angles throughout the document. It's almost like a keyword, popping up again and again. It shows it's central to the whole discussion, even if we don't know what A actually means. So just a deep dive into that specific concept.
Right. And then finally, we get to what seems to be the last main heading of the whole document. Us, Onish, Unish 3. Feels like it's wrapping things up.
And what's really striking here is how the structural integrity just holds all the way through, right to the very end. It finishes with a final thematic section, just like you'd expect in a conventional research paper or, a well-structured article. It suggests a complete, well-thought-out piece of work, designed to tell a full story or make a complete argument, even though we're blocked by the language barrier. It kind of reinforces all our earlier observations about the author being very meticulous, very organized. It feels like a finished, deliberate piece of communication.
So, after all that, where does this leave us? We've just done this deep dive into a document that's, frankly, incredibly opaque. But what we found, I think, is that even without understanding the actual language just by focusing on the structure. By looking for patterns, spotting those numbers, clinging to the few bits we could recognize, like cellular automata, we actually learned a lot. We learned about the nature of the information, how it was organized. We couldn't read the words, but we could sort of see the skeleton of the ideas. And this whole exercise, it's a powerful reminder, isn't it, that being well-informed isn't always just about understanding the text directly. Sometimes it's about understanding how information is put together, how it's presented, how to tackle sources that are difficult or unconventional. You have to be a bit of a detective, even when the clues look alien.
Exactly. And it really makes you think, doesn't it? As information keeps evolving and we run into more and more diverse ways of communicating, things like AI-generated content, maybe completely new symbol systems down the line, how much more important will our ability to analyze structure to spot patterns become? Perhaps even more important than just reading the surface text. It raises a big question. What actually counts as knowledge when the language itself is unfamiliar or entirely new? That's definitely something to mull over as we all try to navigate this ever-expanding universe of information out there.